Welcome to the Pioneer Podcast. I'm Matt Richards, and in this episode, I sit down and have a conversation with Chabi Pathirana of Pioneer Asia. Chabi and I had a couple different conversations, and we had some technical difficulties, so you're going to see a meld of two different conversations that we had in order to finish our conversation for this episode. But it was a great conversation with him. I think it'll encourage you in your walk and what you're doing in ministry. So sit back, enjoy the watch or the listen, and we'll see you on the other side. All right. So Chabi, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. You and I have had some conversations in the past, but can you just tell our watchers and our listeners a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Thank you for having me, Matt. And yeah, I am. My name is Chabi, and I work as a leader in Pioneer Church in Sri Lanka, Kandy. Kandy is the kind of like central city of Sri Lanka and the second biggest city of Sri Lanka, but second biggest in a sense, like compared to, cities in Sri Lanka, but they are like kind of when you compare them, the Kandy with cities in USA. This is
Yeah.
a small town. So, but the majority of Sri Lanka is like Sinhalese. The majority religion is Buddhist. Sinhalese is about, I think, little over 70%. That's the
Okay.
race uh, majority race, and majority religion is Buddhism. That is also like little over 70%. I guess Christianity is, I think, somewhere around 1 to 2%, excluding Catholics. I think including Catholics, it would be around 5-6%.
Okay.
And I wasn't always a Christian, and I got to know the Christ when I was 20 years old. Now I'm almost 41. And I have been a Christian for 21 years now, and you know I had a real difficult childhood. My father was like really addicted to alcohol, and financially, I mean economically and socially, I did not have a um, happy childhood. And then just because of that, we were looking for solutions to take my father out of addiction. It didn't work. We tried everything like science, cult, occult, and religious stuff. Nothing really worked. He wanted to change, but addiction was too strong. Anyway, finally, my mom heard about Jesus. That's not quite common in, you know, um, uh, our lives in our village. As far as I remember, there were only one Christian family, and they were also like kind of separated, or they were like isolated kind of family. So it was like kind of going against the culture. As I told you, like the majority are Sinhalese. I represent Sinhalese. I'm coming from Sinhalese, and if you are a Sinhalese, you have to be a Buddhist. So that's kind of like interlinked, integrated. You can't like it's inseparable. So when you do that, you kind of um, separated from the community. Sometimes you can be, persecuted in different ways. Sometimes not physically, sometimes physically. Um, so you don't dare to make that decision. You don't be a Christian. But we were in a situation where financially, socially, mentally, we were like really depressed. We didn't have solutions. So my mother wanted to try Jesus in the end. And when she heard about the church and she went there, she didn't know anyone. She was like hiding, going there because it was kind of a shame for us to leave our religion. But when when she went there, the pastor, it was fully crowded, miracle service kind of a day. And then he told my mother, like, okay, I see that lady who tried everything came here, let me try Jesus. That was like a shock for my mom because she didn't knew anyone there. We never been to a church before. So, I mean, to make the story short, she accepted Jesus Christ, and within 6 months, my father accepted Jesus Christ. Um, his whole life has been changed. You know, I hate my father. I wanted to kind of like, if I can kill my father, because that he was that terrible guy. But now I love him the most. He's a complete different person. He's a pastor in a AOG church now. So Jesus Christ changed everything in my life. So I started come to ministry uh, to give my life to Jesus, because I have seen quite a lot of miracles in my life. Nobody can deny them, because they are my personal experiences. Since then, I started serving the Lord. Now, mm, you know, uh, in Kandy City, I'm giving the leadership to the team of this church, which is a very small church. Somewhere we have, if everyone comes on a Sunday, we have about 50 people on the church. Um, and we at the moment we are more focusing on building disciples and leaders, because we believe in multiplication. So we take time uh,
Okay.
to raise leaders. So that's what we do. A bit of our ministry and a bit of how I came to know Jesus Christ.
Very cool. Now, I looked up Kandy. The population is about 1.5 million. It looks like in the town or in the city. Um, Now, you were talking about earlier that your mother, because your dad's alcoholism and struggling with the addiction, was struggling financially. What is like the average income for someone on a on a yearly income for someone there?
Now, I would say it's about how much? Mm, $200 uh, a month, the rough
Okay.
average salary, I would say. The how much that means, like $2,400 annual, I guess. That
Okay.
would be the income of a average person.
So very high poverty, a lot of addiction. I'm guessing if when you don't have finances, addiction tends to run rampant in a lot of areas
Yeah, yeah.
like that.
I mean,
Um,
yeah, it is, because most of the young people, they don't have jobs at this moment. So when you don't have jobs, you tend to, like find something to for you to keep yourself busy. So that's what happening right now, I guess.
yeah. So you have a very high unemployment. Is that what with
Yes,
people?
we do. I
They're
mean, we
not
had
employed,
it.
hard to find jobs.
Yeah, we had it all along, but soon after the COVID, we had a like financial crisis as a nation. We Sri Lanka declared as a bankrupt nation early this year. So I think even during COVID and after with the crisis, I think I've heard over a million people lost their jobs, jobs related to businesses, jobs related to uh, tourism, mainly I would say. Uh, so many
Okay.
people lost their jobs.
Yeah. So COVID really pushed it over the edge of people losing their jobs. Is that so? What is the very common? So you said it's what 1% Christianity and the rest is Buddhism.
Yeah, I mean, Buddhism is, I think, somewhere around 70%, 70, 72, 73, somewhere around that. And
Okay.
Hinduism and Islam is somewhere around, I guess, 12%. So which make is
Okay.
25, 24 something. I think 13, 12, somewhere
Wow.
around that. That
So,
means 90 something, and then 4% or 5% altogether,
yeah,
Catholics and
yeah.
Christians.
So you're seeing, yeah, so you're seeing a rise in the Muslim religion in your country. Is that correct?
I I think it's because of the what do you call the increase of the population. They have I would say their population is increasing. It's not that they are converting others or anything. It's just their population is increasing, and many of
Okay.
due to financial situation, all the other I would say, like, I can't generalize, but all the other families are, reducing their reproduction, or like having children, like they are limited to one
Yeah.
child, or
Okay.
maximum two, or some decide not to have children. But that is not the case with the
Okay.
Muslim, uh, generally, I would say.
So is that the government saying that you can only have one, or is that just the kind of the way that they're living their lives?
No, no, the government does not say anything. It's just people are, understand that it's not easy to have kids, and taking care of them is too expensive.
That's so good to know you, brother.
Yeah, it's good to chat with you. We chat. We've had a couple quick conversation in the past, and just to get to know each other a little bit. But um, I figured, since I sent you a couple questions about um, uh, who you are and different things like that. So I'd really like to just to for all of our viewers and listeners to get to know you a little bit. You and I have had a couple conversations a little bit, but even those conversations, I don't know a whole lot about you. So I'd like for you to kind of just explain who you are, and so our viewers can kind of get to know you, um, and how your relationship with Christ kind of started, and where you came from.
Sri Lanka is like is a very strong Buddhist nation, and we have like several, you know, ethnicities or races lives in Sri Lanka, but the majority is Sinhalese. So I'm
Okay.
coming from Sinhalese, which is about 75% of the country,
Okay.
and so the Sinhalese are Buddhists. So that is like kind of inseparable. For we have a history over 2,500 years. So like that belief system is in our like genes.
Yeah.
And
So
I was a
you're
Buddhist.
that.
I was so yes.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
that's ingrained in your DNA from generations.
Generations. So
Wow.
uh, I am a Sinhalese and I was a Buddhist for 20 years. And in my, I would say, village, and then in my family line, there were no Christians. And for us, Christianity was like our enemy who came to destroy our nation and our religion. But to make it very short, I had a very difficult childhood. My father was like extremely alcoholic. So financially and mentally, I had a really disturbed childhood. But even then, we believed in my religion and our religion, and we hope that like there will be something good happen today, but it never happened. We used to practice, like several strong Buddhist practices which we do from our childhood, chanting and doing different things and worshiping every day. expecting something would happen, something good would happen, my father will change, but it didn't happen. And then we tried all the medical stuff, cultic stuff, didn't happen. So it has been happening until I was like 19 years old. So we were like pretty hopeless. And by the time, like probably when I was a teenager, I did not believe in any religion, because that was the time, like I said, I thought like in my mind, like if there is a God, if there is a philosophy or power in any religion, that should help me. So it didn't help, so I gave up. Like I wouldn't say you know, I became I completed disbelief in Buddhism, but I was hopeless. And then, somehow my mother came to know about Jesus, um, and they said, "See, we tried everything. Let us, even though it's a shame, but we'll try this as well." So she went to a church. It seems like like quite a charismatic place where they had their. It wasn't a Sunday. They had their fasting prayer, uh, miracle day or something. And then
Yeah.
she was outside. It was fully crowded, and then there were no one. Like we knew, like I mean, I wasn't there. My mother and two sisters were there. They went to the church without knowing my father, because he was like really aggressive as well. And the pastor said, "That lady outside the door who's waiting outside the door has gone to everywhere, tried everything. Now here today, she's here today. We tried everything. Let's try Jesus." That's the thought. She was like amazed, and she was looking. Is there anyone whom I know? But there were no one. Like we didn't know anyone, any Christians. So since then, she and my school sister started believing, and they started praying. So miraculously, unknown person came to my home and spread the gospel with my father, and then he accepted Jesus as well.
That's awesome. That's very cool. It's very
So
cool to
like there
see
are
that.
so many,
Yeah.
yeah, there are so many details to that. Like my father is a well-known person in my village, like very notorious, angry, like he don't care about anyone, like that kind of person. He had two court cases by beating policemen. So he worked for the government bank security. He worked as a government bank security, but you know he was like really angry guy. And when he was drunk, no one can control him. So suddenly, he accepted Christ, and then they all started going to church. I mean, I'm making it very fast, but otherwise it's a very nice story to even make a film. There are so many details to make it really, interesting. But and then I was the last. Like I, I said, okay, but I was happy. My father is a changed person. I said, you guys, I'm happy about you guys, but they keep on invited me. Well, one day I decided, like 6 months later, I decided, okay, let me go and see what's happening on the church. But, from that day onwards, like I didn't miss a church. Like if it's a like really sick day, or if I'm really far away, otherwise, I won't miss the church. So that's my life now.
Very cool. It sounds like your mom had a word of knowledge, that pastor spoke a word of knowledge, and called that, basically called your mom out and said, "Hey, you've looked for everything. You've looked in every religion, every type of thing." And it sounds like you were saying how they would try everything. They would chant. They would say everything. It kind of reminds me of Elijah when he was on the mount with the prophets of Baal, doing everything they possibly could to get their God to answer them. And then Elijah calls out to God, and God answers him immediately, and just, gives him that sign that, this is God, this is the one true God. And it's so cool that, your mother had that experience, and that man, God prompted that pastor to call out your mom and say, "Hey, you've looked for everything. and I'm pretty sure that that changed what she was expecting to see when she went into that church.
I mean, of course, like we've never experienced that kind of thing. Like whatever you have done, whatever you've been thinking, and suddenly this unknown person, unknown, like unfamiliar place, when you go there, like suddenly someone's saying, "Hey, you're here because of this," and then you know you can't, when something like that happened, you know, you started believing, okay, there should be a God, otherwise nobody knows what
Yeah,
really happened in my life, except me and my children. So that really changed our, otherwise it's not easy to change our way of thinking. Like we were not ready to give up our religion.
yeah,
Like as I said to you when we started our conversation, it's inseparable.
yeah. So if your religion is pretty much what you said, 70% of the people there. So
Yeah,
how,
little over 70%, I guess.
yeah. So how does Christianity, how is it accepted in your country?
Well, we have some prehistoric evidence that some missionaries or some people came to this island nation. But when we see the strongest evidence, it happened like 500 years ago when Dutch and English and there were some other nation, they came to
Yeah,
capture the country for the colonization, and then they started, uh, you know, spreading the gospel, but not in the way on the Bible. They like started treating people,
yeah,
like this or the other. Like if you want to be a Christian, you can live a good life. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you because like forcefully
yeah.
with the
Thinking that,
gun
yeah,
point. Yeah.
yeah.
So
It's like you have to become a Christian, otherwise you're not accepted.
yeah, so it was really forceful. I think that is one main reason. Like Buddhism came to Sri Lanka through India 2,500 years ago, but the way Buddhism like came into Sri Lanka, the Buddhist missionaries, they came to Sri Lanka, and how they started the conversation, how they spread the Buddhism was like really peacefully and like really intellectual way, but Christianity was not. So that really affect until now in this nation, like
Yeah.
how they started doing that.
So your family gets, your mom gets saved, your sister gets saved, your dad finally gets saved. Then what was your experience? I mean, was it
Well,
just like, oh, my parents introduced me, or was this a long, hard fought battle for your parents praying for you?
I think they've been praying for me. I was at peace about them, but I was not at peace about myself.
Yeah,
Uh, I didn't have a hope, or like I was in a bit of confusing stage, and they being inviting me like I was 20 years old, like young man, and then I just came to see what's happening. Then I came on a day where they had a youth day, so they had a lot of youth, young people. So they had this sports day. I went there with two of my friends, and then I really liked the friendship and how people like responded to me. Like they came to me, hey, we were expecting you. We've been praying for you, and so many things. Like, you guys know me. Like I was like the way like really warm, welcome, and there were like over 500 people on that place
yeah,
on that. And then they like I thought, okay, let me go and see what's happening on Sunday. They invited me. I went there alone without my friends, and then again they welcomed me. And then during the worship, like I felt something different here. Like I felt the peace. Now I know that's the spirit of the Lord. Like I felt something like happening inside me,
yeah,
like dragging me in, like my like whole being like dragging. They are experience the peace I never experienced. So just to feel that, just to experience that, I started going there for about 6 months. And after 6 months, I, like suddenly I was thinking of how can I bring more people to experience this? What can I do more? So I was suddenly thinking, what am I thinking? Like I just came here to see what's happening here. Now I'm thinking, what can I do? And how can I bring more people? How can I say this to others? So I would say within I'm still I still remember the it was after 6 months. I was thinking like I didn't know how these 6 months passed. Like I was keep on going every day. I wanted to go there, and then not just on Sundays, even on weekdays we had. I mean, they had quite a lot of youth stuff going on. I was there. Like whenever I had time, I just wanted to go there, and then I realized like I've experienced Christ. This is where I belong. I think that's where I felt like it didn't happen like suddenly on day one, but it was a process, and then I realized I can't leave this place. This is where I belong.
Yeah.
So that's what happened to me. Like I think after 6 years, I've started seeing. I mean, during those 6 months, I've started seeing the things I should give up, the things I should adapt. So I think a lot has changed in my life during those 6 months, and then I made my decision.
That's very cool. Very cool. So you're born again. Your family's born again. What did you start to see after your family started? They were born again. You accepted Christ. How did your life change? What did you see after you made that choice to follow Him? Was it immediately different? Did you feel called to do something? How did that? How was your life after that?
Well, we were like financially struggling, and as a family and socially, we were struggling. But, we have seen a big change in my father's life. He has never stopped drinking even one day. Uh, I mean, throughout 20 years of my life, and whenever he drink, he's like becoming really abusive. He's not
Mm.
drinking. I mean, we've seen him, you know without drink in the mornings. Like he was waiting for bars to open. He
Yeah.
was a very nice guy. Believe me, I wanted to kill him. I was planning to kill him when I was a teenager. It
Wow.
was only that I was thinking I'm the only son. Then if I go to jail, it will be very difficult for my family. That was the only thought, like holding me. Mm, like I was ready. Like I was expecting him to die one way or the other, like accident or whatever, because didn't happen. But from the day one, I've seen a change on him. Like he was trying for the first time, but it didn't happen on the day, on the first day. It was a process but he reduced it. He never have done that. He reduced it. So he was going to church. He was praying. He was worshiping and asking the Lord. But the abusive bit of his life has reduced like dramatically, extremely, like probably from the day one, probably the abusive part was like reduced to 50%
Wow. That's
completely. That
amazing.
was a huge difference. And he wanting to change his life was huge difference. And to make it short, now he's a pastor in Assemblies of God Church. He has been
Wow.
ministering now 18 years.
Wow. That's
So
awesome.
yeah, to make it short, like I love him the most now in this world. he's
Yeah.
the he's the best person is in this world now. So I don't need anything else to prove myself or to say others. Like the pastor who spoke to my mom the word of knowledge, that was a concrete evidence. And then my father, like his brothers, the police, his superiors in his job, or nobody, like his parents, nobody could change him. He knows that.
Yeah.
He goes around and says that to people, like people whom he associated were all also like him. So he's well known in his area, like those kind of people. So he's a
Yeah.
pastor now. He's 70 years old. Like, ah, man, he's a very lovely person now. So, and you know we were literally homeless soon after we accepted. I mean, even on that point we were on rented houses, but because of my father's behaviors, he had several court cases. Because of that, we lost his job, and then we couldn't afford a house, so we were homeless.
Wow.
But this happened when you accepted the Christ 1 year later. So thank God we had these concrete evidences in our lives that didn't disturb ourselves. Like we were started praying more. We thought, okay, we knew that this is a you know this is something from the Satan, that he wanted to like test us.
Yeah.
And anyway, cut this short, like uh, there were so many miracles happened. My father completely stopped his drinking, and we have been given land for free by our grandmother. And so many things happen now. My parents lives on a nice house which they built during these few years. So our lives has been like upside down since we came to know the Christ. And when it comes to me, like as I said, I was hopeless.
Yeah.
So during those 6 months, without even knowing, like God has keep on filling my heart with so many things I should do. So that's when I captured the purpose of my life, and that gave me a hope to live and serve the Lord.
Yeah.
So since then, I was following and having them as goals in my life and running behind them.
That's very cool. So what made you decide to go into the ministry? Was it just your dad did it and you're like, I'm going to follow, or was there a moment that
No,
God called you?
no, actually, my father's joined ministry a year later than me.
Oh, really?
Yes. So, as I said, I was after 6 months, I was like strongly bonded with the church youth. I was thinking, my head was full of ideas of what should I do. So
Yeah.
I was really passionate of this thing, like this newfound thing. I mean, there are so many things I should do, so many things like in my, I mean, in me, that I should do this, I should do this. I mean, so many creative ideas, and I didn't know what to do because I was part of AOG church, and if you want to do something in the church, like you need to become a pastor.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to be a pastor. I want I didn't want to become a clergy or a priest. You know, but I had this passion for young people and for others. I mean, like how creatively say this to others, and mainly my heart was about now I know the word, but and then I didn't understand how to bring about transformation. I've understood and I've seen the transformation happen in my life, not just mentally, not just spiritually, like holistic transformation happen in my life. So I
That's very
want,
cool.
if that happened in other people's lives, and then this whole country can be easily transformed. So that thought process was in me, like uh, I mean, it was, I know, probably in first 6 months, like suddenly I was a different person. I had all these thoughts in my heart. So I didn't know how to, respond. The only way to do that to become a pastor. So I didn't want to become a pastor. So I tried whatever I could do by becoming a part of church leadership, church youth leadership team. So probably uh, after the first year, I became a youth leader of this church. Like this church had a huge youth team, a little over 300 as far as I remember. That's
Wow.
just Sinhalese. That's just Sinhalese. The Tamils and English speaking crowd altogether would have 500 people. So
Wow.
that was fast to become a, part of youth leadership team within the first year
Yeah.
was probably unheard of it. But I did whatever I could do, but I understood this is not enough. But I didn't want to become a pastor because that was not the life I expected. So so uh, I was clueless at that point.
I think when we're all born again and young, we're all clueless. And then, we find someone who teaches us and mentors us and directs us in the right way to say things to draw people to God instead of the fear and the hell and the damnation part of it in the Bible. They teach you how to be a little more eloquent in your speaking. But so so you went from youth ministry to then what? What happened? I mean, tell us more. I want to know. This is good.
Okay. What happened next? I was speaking to quite a lot of leaders in the church regarding what happens in me, and many did not understand. They all invited me to, okay, why don't you join the training to become a servant of the Lord? Was at the time called Timothean training in the
Mm,
AOG
yeah.
church. So I've seen how the training goes going on, and I didn't want to be part of that. It was tough. It was good, but it was tough. It was not the life I was expecting, And then you have to change the way you dress, or your hairstyles and the fashion. I mean, quite a lot of things like lifestyle. And the one thing was like I've started seeing the life, becomes more boring. I thought life with the Christ was more like exciting. That probably was the one thing that I didn't want to become a pastor or a minister. And then since like they I mean the church and the leadership understood the calling in me, and then they really supported me, but they knew only one thing only, that okay, why don't you join this training and become a pastor. But our youth leader at the time, he was a AOG pastor called Dinesh. He was such a lovely guy. Probably he was one reason that I'm here today and I became a Christian. Uh, Such a lovely spirit. He told me, okay, like normally a pastor won't do that. There is another pastor called David, who's my friend from another AOG church. I think he'll understand, he said. And then, during a youth camp, I've been introduced to this person called David, who was like 2 years older than me, but he was in a different level. And I started having a good relationship with him. I was, sharing, the things I had in me. He seems understood, what's happening in my life. I mean, it has been happening for about 3 years. Has been happening around 3 years, and then one day I was like really confused or didn't know how to like take all these things out. One option is to become a pastor, and I felt like I wanted to do something else. And out of this confusion, I called David and he said, okay, no worry, come and see me. I didn't have money those days, like not a penny in my hand. I was 24 years. I tried different jobs. And whenever something happens in the church with the youth, if I did not get a off, I leave the job and I come and do the youth work. So that was how I reacted at that point. And then he called me and I went to see him. I had to, like, he said, okay, come to this point and get into three-wheeler tuk like small three wheels taxi. He said, I'll pay for the taxi. And I came there. I couldn't find any taxi on that day. I had to walk 4 kilometers. I ran 4 kilometers. I was like sweating, and then he said, calm down, and we had the chat. And I remember, just like today, I was wearing a cap. He asked me to remove the cap, and he had this cup of oil in his hand. He poured that oil into my head and prayed over me, and saying, God has anointed you to become an apostle for this generation. And I pray and anoint you and release the gift. He was explaining
Wow.
me what's the role of an apostle, but I didn't understand anything at that point. But I never, heard anything like that before. But I understood that he understood
Yeah.
what's happening in my life. And then, but I felt the freedom. Like I felt someone understood me. And then I came home, and he was saying, okay, even though God is going to do this through you need to allow the system to take you through, because God is in control. So I came back. I joined the Assemblies of God training, 2006, January 1st. And then I was there for 6 months, and then I requested Assemblies of God Church to transfer me to the other AOG church where the David was the leader, because in a nice way I understood that I can't be here anymore. It's so
No,
you
I
know
understand that. I understand there's there's people in the church and then there's
yeah.
your people in the church. And that
So
sounds like David was one of your people.
of course. So see, it was very difficult because I was these people for 4 years. They took care of me. They were so
Yeah.
lovely people. There's nothing wrong in them.
Yeah.
It was just me. I couldn't control myself because of the things which I think, I know that when something, I mean, when Lord is doing something in your life, there is control. I'm not saying that I was like not in control, but I knew something more than this. So that
Yeah.
should be the right word.
Yeah.
So I went to David. I spent uh, 4 years with him since then. four
Wow.
years he has been training me. Like he understood the calling in me. So he was probably one of the pioneers about apostolic ministry in Sri Lanka. He was part of this fivefold ministry network, apostolic network, which comes from USA. Probably the team, the apostolic table involved with the people, many people from USA. I wonder whether you heard people like Barbara Wynne, Robel, Chuck Pierce, Jim Hodges. All
Yeah.
these people were in the network, so he was part of that somehow. Like, so he was part of apostolic ministry, even though he was part of Assemblies of God Church at the
Mm.
time. I mean, even at that point, not just Assemblies of God Church, many churches, they knew the teachings around fivefold ministry, but nobody really practiced it. Nobody really
Yeah.
believed it. So
Yeah.
that, I mean,
Yeah.
learning
I went to
about
a
fivefold ministry, if you that's nothing new. Everyone knows that, but it's really new when it comes to practicing fivefold ministry.
yes,
uh,
that's a lot of churches will talk about it. They talk about the fivefold, but they don't operate in it because especially in American culture, it's the pastor that is the leader of the church, and the apostle, the prophet. And well, that's a topic they don't really want to talk about. But we talk about the
Yeah.
pastor, teacher, evangelist, and that shepherding.
Three,
But they don't really want to talk about that because a lot of people don't understand it. They don't understand what the call of the apostle and the prophet are for the church because it's uncomfortable, because it makes people uncomfortable because they're
sure, yeah.
constantly looking where God is going and where God is leading and following after. And the pastor's like, well, we got to keep everybody happy and we want to make sure they're all safe and nothing's too chaotic for them.
No, of course, taking care of people, that's the day-to-day life. Like that's
Yeah.
important too. But
Yeah.
we have seen the
Absolutely.
threefold ministry. It's pretty similar even today. It's after 20 years, it's still the same. You see threefold ministry. In rare cases, you see uh, prophetic gifts or prophets involved, but very rarely you see the apostolic ministry. I mean, we have seen the extremes also, like people love having titles in front of their names, like having their
Yeah.
names like apostles, reverends, doctors, prophets, generals, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's another
Bishop.
extreme. Bishop,
Yeah.
Archbishop. I mean,
Yeah.
thank God the the evangelical or charismatic church doesn't use Pope as a title. Come on.
Yeah.
So
So,
yeah, that's one
so
extreme, but yeah.
yeah. So you feel this call to go into ministry. You're with David for what, probably almost 6 years then total?
4 years
Four.
with
I'm sorry,
him.
4 years with
Yes,
him, and you're feeling this
and
call
the
to move.
yes, and I mean during that time even he did not use. I mean he gave me the training to do everything, like be a pastor, how to take care of you know the believers, how to be a real good pastor, and like every bit of it, like, and then how to become a good teacher and send me to a Bible college, and like how to preach the gospel, and everything, because he understood the way the Sri Lankan church operates, so he didn't want me to like uh, lose myself, like, oh, like what do you call it, lost myself where I don't know anything when I go into uh, the life of ministry. I mean, even
Yeah.
during that time, so many great things happened. Like since he was part of these several apostolic networks, people like several I had the opportunity to meet several people who pioneered apostolic ministry in Sri Lanka, and some of the people like Barbara Venerable and different other people from USA, and several people out of them like came, and when they started praying for me, they said, okay, I see an apostle, I see a gift of apostolic lays on you. Like 4 times I've heard that clearly. No one else said any other giftings, but these people, they didn't know. I mean, many of them, they didn't know me, they didn't know what I was passionate about. It was strong and clear message from them that the what the gift God has given, the role God has given to me when it comes to fivefold ministry.
Very
And
cool.
then I had the opportunity to do my bachelor's degree and scholarship in UK. I came out to UK and studied 2 years. 2012, end of 2012, I came back to Sri Lanka, and then I had this decision to make. Am I going to continually work with David in Katugasota, because I he understands me, and there was another opportunity for us to plant a new ministry in Sri Lanka. So I had this discussion with David, and I mean, it wasn't easy to leave I mean, not leaving, but in a way it's leave a man who's like very close to my heart, who's like who is like a brother, who was like a brother, who will be a brother to me forever. It was a very difficult decision, but I knew that God wants me to come out of that structure and want to, do whatever God asked me to do. So
Yeah.
2012, 2013, we started planting a new church in Sri Lanka called New Horizons Christian Fellowship, which was part of the network which I studied in UK. And but the first 2013 to 2015, it was a very difficult time, even with the people, their way and understanding was different, my way and understanding was different. It was a team ministry, so many classes happened, and then I had to come out. I had to
Mm.
come out, and we planted this church in 2015 August. I
Yeah.
mean, to be honest, we planted a family, not a church.
Yeah.
I planted a
Yeah.
family. We believe in team ministry, and we've from even from the beginning we've started recognizing the gifts in the church and tried to operate as a fivefold ministry practicing church. And now we've been going through this road for 7 years. Lord has been doing amazing things in our church and in the leadership team.
That's awesome. It's funny because I was born in 1980, and
Okay.
1980, and I was, how old was I? We planted in 2013, our church in
Okay.
2013, in a little meeting space, probably 25 feet by 30 feet. It was a library. Our local library had a little meeting space. And in 2013, we planted the church, and it was like, 12 people, 13 people, just something small. But it's the small beginnings that are the exciting part of what God is going to do. And um, yeah, I was 33. Yeah, 33 when I planted our church. We had been doing ministry for, gosh, Sarah and my wife and I were talking. Um, 24 or 23 years now, like, just even like we were serving in our local church together even before we were married. I mean, we were engaged in serving in our local church, and like, but just looking back at it, it was like, I look back and it's been 10 years of, ups and downs, but it's an adventure though. I love it. It's just like, you never know what's going to happen. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. There's tragedy that the people that are part of your family, but I like what you said. The church, you've created a family. You created a family that God designed the church to be, because if you look at Acts, he created a church, but it wasn't just a church that showed up on a Sunday only and said hi to each other and drank coffee and then saw each other a week later. This was a family that broke bread together and uh, rejoiced together and wept together and sang together and prayed together. And I think that's what God designed the church to be, is a family, but a family that is willing to get up and move like he asked them to.
No, of course, yes. I mean, as I said, like when I made the decision to come out of the AOG church, which was not an easy choice. One reason was David. He was really close to my heart, and the second one is like, who wants to leave a you know, an organization like AOG,
Yeah.
well known. You have the protection and everything. Who
The
wants to leave?
finances behind
Uh,
everything, and
finance, a lot of
yeah.
security.
Yeah.
And then when I made my decision, and the first 2 years was a mess, like but
You learn a
still
lot.
I learn a lot.
Learn a lot.
And then, as I said, when we planted the church in 2015 from the beginning again, and you know that like it was about some days like me and my wife and three other people, like 5 people, 6 people,
Yeah.
do not feel like preaching from
Yeah.
the like having the in front standing in front of with the pulpit. No, you just sit around and have a chat, and
Yeah.
then no instruments, no money. Some days we'll have this small like congo drum. Some days we didn't have that. I didn't know how to play that even. you know is this what you wanted to do by coming out of AOG, and is this what you were passionate about?
Hey, thanks for joining us on the Pioneer Podcast. We really appreciate you tuning in. If this encouraged you, share it with somebody, and until next episode, God bless.